Hi, this is Deborah Sexton.
Richard Greaves.
Stacy Marshall.
You are listening to
Two Regular Guys
Podcast.
Hosted by Terry Combs,
Terry Combs,
and Aaron Montgomery.
Coming to you live from a condemned outhouse on the wrong side of the tracks. Somewhere dark, dirty, and dank.
All right. Well, that's what I get for handing my digital microphone just to anyone. It's
anyone being Jimmy Lamb.
Exactly. And letting him walk away with it. Welcome to the show, everyone. It's Friday, February 9th, 2018. I'm Terry Combs, and you can find me at Equipment Zone or also at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me at aaronmontgomery.info as well as sublysource.com. And today we're going to be talking about equipment and supplies you'll need when starting a production, that's keyword I believe here, screen print shop. So this is going to be a cool preview. You get to hear it here first. You get a preview of Terry's DAC seminar coming up in Kansas City. So I'm excited to hear and learn. And I have to get do you have an extra yellow legal pad I can borrow, Terry?
I do, Aaron. I've sent you a box of them. So,
okay, good.
Because, I do buy them from Amazon or Skynet by the case. So, when you and I get together in Kansas City, I'll make sure that you have plenty in your bag when you go home. So
very nice.
But today's show, for people who are already screen printing, this will be a little review, but this is really for folks who are thinking about getting into the business or maybe expanding into screen printing from the current business they have. So we're gonna go through the list of what you need and maybe what you don't need. But Aaron, in the news, Mind's Eye Graphics is partnering up again with Joe Clark, and he's offering an enhanced version of their successful ink transfer workshop, and that's going to be March 1st through 3rd, 2018, and we'll have a link at Mind's Eye Graphic is mindseig.com, I believe, but we'll have a link on our website. So if anybody's interested in that. Definitely
should be good. They've got a number of great training events coming up over there. So
I do indeed.
I know that they've done really well with Joe Clark in the past, so I'm assuming they're going to fill that one up. So good stuff. Terry, one thing I saw is the IJC, which is a European thing, the Inkjet Conference, is actually coming to the United States April 12th and 13th. And they're going to be at the Westin O'Hare, Chicago. And the event's going to provide OEMs, brand owners, printers, and all technology users with almost 40 technical and educational presentations, free inkjet workshops, and countless networking opportunities. So not maybe specific to, garment decorating and things like that, but at the same time, I think there's lots to be learned there. So it might be worth checking out. And I hear it's gotten pretty big in Europe. So we'll see how it does here.
That's awesome. And O'Hare, speaking of O'Hare, I was in Newark Airport yesterday and noticing all the canceled flights going into O'Hare. And Aaron, as we were talking about before we came on the air, I'm leaving for O'Hare at 4:30 this afternoon to teach a screen printing class. So according to the weather forecast, there's going to be a break in the snow. And so I might be able to squeeze right in there. I've never ever missed a teaching engagement. Once they almost routed me from Phoenix to San Francisco to get up to Chicago, but we'll fingers crossed that I make it up there. But also, Aaron, the SGIA Industry Survey, the 2018 Industry Survey, is open up, and anyone can participate in this. And I urge all decorators to do this, because even if you're not a member, you get the survey. If you participate, you get a copy of the survey. And the thing about this survey is it tells you every job in your shop, what the average wage is for that job in your region, nationally. It's really, I've used it for years to base my wages for my staff and production floor. And so I certainly urge people to do that. And that's going to be, you can find that at sgia.org. Yeah. Or you could go directly to it by going to our website, regularguys.com, and we'll have a link up there for you.
Yeah, that's definitely good information. And, share that stuff, and then you get a bunch of great information back. So,
huge.
Hey, Terry, one other quick thing that I wanted to note that I didn't have on the show notes, you had mentioned that you were in the Newark airport, and so you were out there in New Jersey becoming a sublimation expert. So I just wanted to kind of feel this out a little bit, make sure that I'm not being replaced. That's my area of expertise now. And if you're just going to take over and become one regular guy, I just want to make sure.
There were I think 4 tech guys there and 3 sales reps, and gosh, it's there's a lot to sublimation here, and I have to give you credit for being the expert you are, because I was sitting there with my mouth open and hearing about matching PMS colors and on different substrates and things like that, and then I kind of wandered away and made some sales calls. So no, I'm not replacing you as a sublimation guy.
Okay, all right. Well, no, it is an interesting process, and when you're, like you said, going on different substrates, that white's not always the same, and the colors don't always look the same, and so it is a bit more in depth. But that's cool that you got an opportunity to check that out and enjoy the beautiful weather, I'm sure, in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, I had the opportunity. One of the techs, our tech here, Wade Rowan from Phoenix, was the designated driver because Jeff Morgenthaler and I stepped back away from the counter when he said, "Who's going to be the driver?" And so we had the adventure of driving through snow and ice with a guy from Phoenix. So that was awesome.
That had to be a hair-raising experience for sure.
Here's me holding onto the dashboard, going, "Slow down, slow down, slow down."
I bet you that dashboard still got finger marks in it.
Exactly right. Well, hey, we really appreciate everybody listening to our show all around the world, and we are pleased to bring this show to you since February 2013. Aaron, crazy. This is our 6th season, and this show we it's all about education and getting to meet people in the industry. Never rants, never lectures, and we would love for you guys to visit our website. It's 2 regularguys.com. Check out the show notes, and as I was mentioning before, anything we talk about here, the links are always up on our website for shows back from show number 1. And we're always looking for suggestions, by the way, for future shows. And you can do that by going to our Contact Us page at 2regularguys.com, or we're all over social media, thanks to Aaron. And again, that's going to be at 2 regular guys. And if you're catching this show live on Facebook right now, we would love to have your comments, insights, questions, suggestions about today's topic. But Aaron, before we dive in, let's hear a word from our sponsor for 2018, the Specialty Graphic Imaging Association, SGIA.
Empowered, inspired.
That's you after ThreadX, powered by SGIA in Palm Springs, California, February 25th through the 28th, 2018. This new event, designed by and for garment decorators, explores not just how to sell products, but how to get noticed.
The focus is on marketing, branding, and consumer trends in this omni-channel retail age.
Join the 2 regular guys to satisfy your appetite for actionable inspiration with speakers including Johnny Cupcakes, Tim Williams of the YR Store, and many more. This is a must-attend event if you plan on seeing your company into the future. Plan on attending ThreadX, powered by SGIA in Palm Springs, California, February 25th through the 28th, 2018. Go to threadx18.com for more details and to register.
We can't wait to see you there.
All right. Well, and those of you that were checking this out on the Facebook Live, you would have saw a screen come up, which is a tweet that they just recently sent. Today is actually the housing deadline day. So if you are attending and you don't have your hotel booked there yet, if I don't know if you've ever booked a hotel in Palm Springs, California in the wintertime, it's not easy and it's not
right.
So the good rates go away today. So make sure you get over to threadx.com/housing and get signed up. We have our hotel room, Terry, so we're good to go.
Awesome, and we're doing the drive over and talking to Marshall Atkinson, who's riding along with us, and he suggested not only because we were going to pass the the digital microphone around and maybe do a show. And he's like, we need to do video. And I thought, gosh, I've got my my very small video camera, and maybe we'll it might be one of those that you can't watch very long, because you start getting nauseous because it's moving all around the car. But
yeah, no, it'll be a fun ride and lots of great content. And we're going to probably kind of get all that content wrapped up and edit it together and drop those as a couple of just regular podcasts while Terry's traveling in the month of March, which seems like every weekend.
It does. It makes me sad to look at my calendar, my handwritten calendar, Aaron, not digital.
I don't even. Just all those pencil marks scraped in and out. So, well, one other thing, Terry, before I turn this over to you, I'm going to let you do the bulk of the work today. Since you were going to be sharing with a list of items, I figured I needed to do the same for 5 things today. So I'm going to be talking about 5 things you need for a toner transfer business at the very end of the show. So stay tuned for that.
Very good. Well, I obviously 10 minutes into the show and I went off I fell off right off the outline. So I apologize for that, Aaron.
Not unexpected, and makes it more fun. All right. Well, Terry, you ready to start talking a little screen printing here?
Let's do it. Let's talk about starting a screen printing business.
Okay. Well, let me get some slides up for those of you checking out, see if I can figure out how to make this fit better. Well, no, you don't need to see me. I may take myself. No, that's going to work. Okay. Well, just Terry, introduce it here, and we'll figure out how to best manage this. So.
Well, absolutely. The thing about starting a screen printing business is it's a little confusing about how to get started or where to get started. What do I really need to buy? And Aaron, we talk a lot about suppliers here on the show, and some of your suppliers are expert screen printers, and they can tell you exactly what you need to buy. But a lot of your suppliers also sell direct-to-garment ink. They sell embroidery equipment. They sell embroidery thread. They sell sign products, things like that. So I have people come up to me all the time, or they'll email me. They've been to one of my seminars and say, hey, this is what XYZ supplier said I need to buy. And I'm just going down the list. No, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need that. But hey, you do need this. You do need this. You do need this. But a lot of what I see is things that a little bit of oversell of what you really need to run the business. And I'm not saying that the supplier says that the supplier is telling you something that purposely that you don't need. I think a lot of them just don't know. So it's really good to take a look at talk to somebody who is not involved in accepting your credit card. I'll just say that.
Yeah. So Terry, that was a kind of an area that I wanted to get to here, but real quick, just got to say good morning to everybody. Eric Campbell's in joining us. Good morning. And he said, great topic, guys. Let me know if you want to do an embroidery version someday. So
we do indeed. Absolutely.
I see a series coming on here, Terry. That's
me too.
How these things would go. And then my brother-in-law, Eric Shea, is joining us this morning too. So good morning, Eric. Welcome. So get the family and friends joining us this morning. Good stuff. All right, Terry. Well, let me I'm going to make the slides here the predominant here, and I guess my thing. Tell me, we know you have a ton of experience in all this, obviously, from all the discussions we've had over these 6 years. But and you kind of dove in a little bit about why you might be more qualified. But just tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I guess my background, and a lot of our regular listeners have probably heard this over the years of this show, but I had to work my way up to being a garage printer. I started as a basement printer and on a very, very tight budget. And so I think I have a real appreciation of what do I absolutely need to make this business successful. And, I've also been that guy running a production floor with 75 production floor employees. And all my listeners out there who have employees can appreciate, they're probably cringing when they hear me say 75 employees because, well, let me tell you real quick. I've told this before, but I know we have a lot of new listeners. My son, Chris, came to work with me. He's 37 now, but when he was about 12, he came to work with me one day to write a report about what my dad does for a living. And about 10 o'clock, he goes, "Is this your job?" And I said, What do you mean? Is this your job? And he said, "Is your job to listen to people complain all day?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, that is my job." So once you have employees, folks out there, your life changes forever, but you got to have employees to grow your business. So, and I've been on both sides of this. I've been on the supply side. I've been on the, most of my career has been on the production side though, and actually working with suppliers and buying equipment and buying supplies and things like that. I think I come from a perspective also. I've been teaching screen printing classes for, oh my gosh, 15 years. I've come to have a pretty good idea of what you need and what you don't need and what those suppliers are saying to you out there. So.
Yeah. Sure. So the suppliers, like our image here, might not have. Can you explain that one real quick for us?
Well, used car salesman. That's from the movie Used Cars.
I'm sure I've told that story that when I was in high school, when they asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up, it was a car salesman. So,
no, I've never told that story.
Oh, okay. Dang it, I should have not then. All right, Terry. Well, let's get into this then. Nice. All right. So let's get into this here a little bit, though, Terry. In my travels, in some of these folks that are out there that are experts in this, I've heard that maybe you needed all heads down for your press. Is that correct? Can you kind of get us started with the hardware?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me just tell you right now. No, you don't ever need an all heads down press. Anybody who tells you that, it's it is an inside joke. If you go to a class and someone's teaching it who has never actually run production before, they're going to tell you need an all heads down press. All heads down means that if it's a 4-station press, 4 people can be there printing. If it's a 6-station, 6 people could be there printing. That is never, ever going to happen. So most manufacturers don't even make the all heads down presses anymore. Why is that? Because no one buys them. But in the U.S. anyway, generally a manual press, one person's going to run that press, and at most it's going to be 2. And well, let me talk about that a little bit. If you are getting into the business and you don't have equipment yet, buy a 6-color machine, a 6-color press. And the reason I say that is you're not necessarily going to print 6-color. You may never print 6-color, but you have the potential of printing 6-color. And with a 6-color press, I can print just about anything. I can take a photograph of the Arizona sunrise out here, and that's right. I am shorts and flip flops right now. I'm just gonna throw it out there, just briefly until I go to Chicago. Yeah. But I could take a photograph of the sunrise and print it on a black T-shirt with a 6-color press. So now the bread and butter for screen printers, Aaron, is it's 1 and 2 and 3 color work. Our joke and my example is always is Jim's towing service, and that's the customer that we sell to. But with a 6-color manual press, I can print virtually anything that anybody approaches me with. And the other thing you want to look at is having 4 or 6 stations. And by that, I mean platens that are going to index, going to move around the press. And the reason I want that is because anytime I print on a dark garment, I need to print a white underbase. Then I need to put it under my flash unit. And then I'm going to, if I have a press that has 4 or 6 stations, I'm going to put another underbase, put that under the flash unit, put another underbase, put that under the flash unit. If I have a single station platen, in other words, that platen doesn't move, I'm going to have to drag the flash unit over there. It's going to take time for that to flash. I'm going to pull it away. I'm going to print the colors. And then also that platen's going to heat up. And the other thing you're going to do, and this is when you're printing it at 3 a.m., and yes, if you're not printing already, you will print at 3 a.m. It's a given. And And one of the things that I can also tell you is all the foods that you can reheat in your conveyor dryer at 3 a.m. and it's always hilarious. Primarily it's pizza, but
just don't forget to catch it at the other end.
Exactly. It's on top of the white shirts. But and the reason I'm saying that a machine that has multiple stations is at 3 a.m. you're going to call your buddy to come over, and your buddy is going to load and unload T-shirts for you while you're printing them. And it's just like moving, by the way, Aaron. It's the payment to have your buddy come and help you. You don't have to pay him cash. It's beer and pizza. So it's for anybody who's wondering what the wage rate at 3 a.m.
How do you put that on your tax return, and then do you send them a 1099 for that?
That's an entirely different show, and I would like you to clip that from the the podcast first.
Whoops. All right. Well, real quick, Terry, we had a couple of great comments in the in the Facebook Live here. Let's see here. Val had said, "Can you imagine 6 people on one press? Nightmare." And then she followed that up with employee costs will eat all those profits plus inefficiencies. And Eric Campbell followed that up with, I've never seen it in a shop, seriously. So in all of his travels.
Oh, yeah, nor have I. Now,
inside joke for us.
In other parts of the world, though, you will see multiple people, on a press. One person's just putting ink in, but that's also, that slave labor wage, to be perfectly honest, and that they can hire somebody for $10 a day, and it doesn't matter how many people you have there, but in a real shop where you have real employees making a living wage, that's never going to happen. But Aaron, the next slide, we're going to talk about conveyor dryers, and by the way, all the pictures I have here, I just randomly picked different products, and I try to mix them up a little bit, but certainly not recommending one over the other. If you go to my website, which is terrycombs.com, I actually have a list of all the different items that you should buy, and there are no brands listed at all for that. I just want you to see exactly what it is that you need to have in your shop, and the brand is between you and your supplier. But a conveyor dryer, you certainly need a conveyor dryer, and a conveyor dryer basically is a dryer where you print the shirt and your press is right next to that dryer. You're going to put the shirt on the belt, and it's going to go through, and it's going to fall into a box at the end, or hopefully, you have an employee's taking that shirt off and inspecting it and folding it and putting it in a box for you. But make sure that you have a dryer that is capable of keeping up with your production. In a manual screen printing shop, a one color print, which again is going to be the most common thing you do, it's going to be, you should be able to manually print about 100 shirts an hour. If that dryer only prints 48 shirts an hour, then the dryer is dictating how much money you're going to make. So an example is my daughter Taylor. When she was in college, she had a screen printing business, obviously.
Why would she the Combs? Why not?
Exactly. She came to my class. But her shop was in the second bedroom of her 2-bedroom apartment. So that limited the size of dryer. And so the dryer she had would only do 48 pieces an hour. So that the dryer dictated how much money she was capable of making in between classes and going out and selling T-shirts. So, and think about this also. You're probably at some point in time, and probably sooner than you might imagine, going to add another press, or at least a one-color press. And so if you can buy a dryer that has the capacity to handle 1 or 2 or 3 presses, all the better. And your budget's going to dictate that. But make sure that your dryer isn't limiting the amount of money that you can make. And Aaron, the next slide here is about flash dryers and a flash cure unit. And you have to have this in your shop as well. And the flash unit is for this. Anytime you print a dark garment, you have to print a white underbase. Then you're going to put it under the flash unit to gel the ink, not to cure the ink. You're going to put it under there to gel the ink. Then you're going to come back and print all the colors on top. That flash unit, by the way, and I only bring this up because every class that I do, there's somebody who is already screen printing, and they go, wait, you don't flash every color? No, you do not flash every color. Plastisol ink is made to be printed wet on wet. So flashing between colors is a Band-Aid for something else you're doing wrong. in your process. So you need a flash unit. There are a lot of really fancy flash units out there for manual presses. I like the one that has the on and off switch. That's all it has, because anything else, you don't need. On, high, or off. That's all you need to worry about. Aaron, the next slide talks about exposure units, and again, there are a variety of exposure units. They're hey, if you're in a really tight budget, you can expose screens in the sun. Now all the suppliers just turned off their computers. That guy just said you don't need to buy an exposure unit. Hey, is it practical? Probably not, but you can certainly do it, because exposing a screen is exposing that screen to UV light. Well, the sun is God's exposure unit. So in a pinch, you can certainly do that. Again, most people buy an exposure unit based on how much budget they had. I'm going to recommend to you that you get a pinpoint light source, which means one bulb. It's probably going to be a metal halide bulb. And the reason for that is when the light hits the screen, it's from one angle. If you have a unit that has multiple bulbs, or maybe it's an LED unit, the light hits from every direction. So you have the potential of undercutting your halftone dots or your fine lines, if that makes sense. It's kind of like when you go in your living room, you turn on one light, you see all the shadows. You turn on all the lights and all the shadows disappear. Well, it's the same with a multi-light source exposure unit. The light attacks from every angle, so a really fine dot might get exposed just from the light leaking around from every direction. Now, you're gonna, next time you go to a trade show, the flavor of the month is an LED unit. And yes, LED units are very cool, because LED lights last like 50,000 hours. If you ever have to replace an LED strip, it's a couple of bucks. But the thing you have to understand about LED units, that's going to dictate what kind of emulsion that you could use, because LED units, the UV light range is much more limited than other types of light sources. So when you buy that exposure unit, you also have to find out exactly what kind of emulsion will work best with that unit. So I don't want to discourage you from LED, because, as I said, it's the flavor of the month. But all the emulsions that you see at the trade show or your suppliers telling you about are not necessarily going to work with that unit. So keep that in mind as well. The next thing, Aaron, the next slide is going to be about a film output device. And I'll just tell you right now, you're going to go out and buy an Epson 4300. You're going to buy a bulk ink system, or either refillable cartridges or cartridges that it might say cyan, but it's got black ink in it. And you're going to buy RIP software. And probably that RIP software, well, let me take a step back. The reason that you need a RIP software is inkjet printers are full color printers. And when you send a halftone dot to an inkjet printer thinks it's smarter than we are. And it says, hey, I see what you're trying to do here. You're trying to print a shade of color. You're trying to print a halftone. So it'll print all your halftones in gray. Gray dots will not expose on your screen. So RIP software does two things. It's going to tell the printer to lay down more ink, and it's going to tell the printer, when you see a dot, print a dot. And it's revolutionary to the industry. But an Epson 4300, they used to be $300. I actually checked yesterday online at the Epson website, and they've gone up to about $350. Bulking system's going to cost you about $150. Buy it. It's going to save you a fortune. RIP software, you're going to get either CADLink's FilmMaker or AccuRip. And both those RIP softwares are about $495. The FilmMaker from CADLink invented RIP software for screen printers, so I'm kind of partial to that, but it's PC only. If you want to use your Mac, AccuRip is both PC and Mac compatible. But this is the printer you're going to need. And Aaron, this is one of those things that I often see from suppliers. They'll have this 17-inch wide printer, and when you go from a 13-inch wide printer, which is what the Epson printer is, when you go from a 13-inch wide printer to a 17-inch wide printer, you're going from $350 to $2,500. The RIP software from $500 to $800 or $1,000. And let me just clue you in. 90% of the film sold by your suppliers is going to be 13 by 18. That'll fit through your $300 printer. Rarely does anybody ever print 17 inches wide. So that is a total oversell, and you do not need a printer that size. And you know what? If this Epson printer dies, it's way easier, to pick it up and throw it in the trash and go spend another $350 than it is to throw away a $2,500 printer. So unless you're printing for NASCAR or something like that, you do not need 17-inch wide films. And hey, if you need once a year 17-inch wide films, call your supplier, and a lot of them will output the film for you. So don't waste your money on that. Next slide is a washout sink. You're going to use your washout sink, and the one in the picture here you'll see is lighted from behind. That's really, really a nice feature, because when you're washing out your screens, having it lighted from behind is going to make it so that you can see that it's washed out properly. You're going to use the washout sink for degreasing your screens. You're going to use it for washing out after you expose. You can use that sink for reclaiming your screens after you've finished printing the job. So you need some kind of a washout sink. And do you need to buy a professional one? Not necessarily. There are a lot of folks who make something themselves, and I've certainly done that as well. And so as long as you can put a screen in there and be able to see what you're doing, more power to you. So again, suppliers that still hung on really have logged off now, because stop telling people, make your own.
We'll let everybody know where to send their hate mail later on, but that let's just
right. I'm going to digress for 1 second here. And I wrote an article once when I was in Kansas City, and my supplier from NASDAR, he invited me to breakfast, and we were having breakfast, and all of a sudden he whips out Impressions magazine, and he opens it up, and he goes, "Were you talking about me right here?" I said, "I absolutely was."
Very nice. So you've been in trouble for years. So this.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, in many places where I've worked, I will be making notes, and like the president of the company will stop and go, "Are you writing that down for your knowledge, or are you writing it down to do an article?" "Oh, I'm totally writing this down for an article."
That's awesome. All right, Terry. Well, let's keep this going here. So
yeah,
we got some great information. Eric had mentioned, in fact, I think I popped it up there, but Terry's giving away the info, folks. Take him up on it. So.
Well, hey, Eric, you're up next, buddy. I think that's a great idea to talk about embroidery as well. But Aaron, the next slide is power washer. You should have a power washer in your shop, but let me warn you, I've been in so many shops where somebody exposes a screen, and then they take it and put it in their washout sink, and they take out their power washer to wash that screen out. That's too much pressure to wash out a screen. You're going to ruin that screen. And by ruin it, I mean, imagine a screen has under a microscope, and actually the holes in the screen are squares. And if you're doing a circle and you're trying to wash it out, well, part of that emulsion is bridging across that square. If you use a power washer, it's going to blow that whole square out. So if you call me up and say, all my screens are all sawtoothy around the edge, it's probably because you've used a power washer to wash it out. So you're going to just use a regular garden hose pressure to wash out your screens. The power washer is only to be used for reclaiming your screens. So, but you will need that in your shop. And Aaron, you'll love the next slide, because you and I love to get on the soapbox about heat presses.
Yeah, but I think it's the one rant that we really have.
It really is our only rant. and the reason we do it is for your own good. You don't have to have a heat press in your shop, but sooner rather than later, you're going to need it. And the first person walks in and says, I need team uniforms. You're going to need a heat press, because you're going to do those names and those numbers and cut vinyl. And whether you cut them yourself or you order them from Stalls or Pro World or Transfer Express or any of these companies, you need a heat press to do that with. And, another thing you can do is you can screen print transfers. If you order transfers from again, say Transfer Express, they're screen printing those onto that transfer paper. You can do that yourself. And let's say you're doing a softball tournament. You don't print up a whole bunch of shirts about the softball tournament and the date. You print up a bunch of transfers, and you go there with your heat press, and you go there with your blank shirts, and when the Thunder and Lightning comes and they cancel the tournament, you're out paper transfers. You're not out a bunch of printed shirts. So buy a good quality heat press. And I cannot emphasize this enough. And all of our regular listeners are like, yeah, I know you guys talk about this all the time. But, a good quality heat press is going to cost you probably $1,400. You'll be using that same heat press 15 years from now. So it's an investment. And one of these cheap imports for $350 is going to be in your dumpster by the end of the year. And on top of that, anything you transferred with it is probably not going to wash very well as well. So,
well, Terry, I'm going to, before you keep going there, I have to tell a story because Eric had mentioned heat press grilled cheese earlier on when we were talking about food. And just a quick side note, I actually hosted a seminar at when I worked at Coastal Business years ago about things you could do with a heat press, and we went through all the different pressing and stuff like that. And then right before lunchtime, the other thing that you could do with it was you could have a grilled cheese, and I actually pressed a grilled cheese sandwich and ate it in front of the class, and it was tasty. So anyhow, well, I had to throw that up there.
I do love myself a good grilled cheese sandwich, and all the here's a hint, Ted Stahl. Hope you're listening. You should have attachment that has ridges in it so that you can make a nice panini.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
I know Ted's always looking for new inventions, and I know he is a listener of the show. So if you guys see at SGIA that Stahl's has a panini attachment, that's us.
That's right. Okay, couple other quick comments, Terry, I want to share before we keep going because there's some good ones. When you were talking about power washers, Valencia Val, as we know her, said that she bought a power washer and learned that lesson once and only once. So Terry is telling the truth, and
right.
And then she also had a good idea, a good show idea that now that we're doing videos, we can maybe make some transfers or figure out a way to make some transfers.
That's a great idea. And for me here in Phoenix, the folks at Workhorse Products, anytime I say, hey, I need to get some pictures or I need to do some video, they're like, hey, come and use our showroom, and we could do my half of the show from Workhorse. So
yeah.
I'd be happy to do that.
Well, maybe I'll be out there in Phoenix a few times this year. My older son's graduating high school out there,
wow.
And so
that's
maybe we can.
Unbelievable, Aaron! I can't believe it. He was just a toddler when we met.
We are getting old, Terry. It's bound to happen. All right. Well, let's keep going. I think let's see here. What's that? Oh, yeah.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about screens, Aaron.
Yeah, please.
Now what you see on the screen here is, and of course, for the podcast folks, what we have is a list of different screen meshes. 30 meshes for glitter, 125 meshes for general prints on black shirts, 305 mesh for process or simulated process, things like that. There are a variety of different mesh counts. Now, in your shop, you're probably going to have maybe 5 different mesh counts, depending on your market. And so don't worry too much about that. But the reason I have this slide up is obviously you need screens to be a screen printer. But make sure that you have enough screens on your floor. If you're a small screen printing shop, and small could be anything from, I print 500 shirts a week up to a few $1 million, have enough screens on your floor to do about a week's production, because you can get all those screens reclaimed, degreased, coated, and they're there for you to use throughout the week. When I ran big production shops where we're doing maybe 125 screens a day, I still had enough screens on my floor to do 3 days of production, because what's going to happen is having 3 days of production ready is hey, if something goes afoul, you've got that next order ready to go, and so you can keep running your product. And what I did when I was a small shop, just myself, or when I just had a couple of employees, I would actually go in on Saturdays, reclaim everything, degrease everything, and coat all my screens for the entire week. So that's a good rule of thumb on what to do. Don't let your supplier, and I'm not talking about your really great supplier who's very, very screen print savvy. The ones who aren't are going to tell you, hey, all you need are 110 mesh screens. That is way too open of screen mesh for most of what you do. Most of what I print is going to be in that 156 to 160 area. And when I say 156 to 160, everybody has different mesh count numbers from suppliers to supplier for that same mesh count, because here's the honest truth. All mesh is made in either Europe or Asia, which translates to it's all metric. When it comes here to the U.S., and all of our international listeners are not aware of this, but when it comes to the U.S., we have to convert it to inches because, well, by gosh, we're in America.
Yes. Okay.
I like to blame Jimmy Carter for this because he had the opportunity to make metric work, and people are just so darn mad at him for saying put a sweater on when it's cold that Google it, everybody who's listening who doesn't remember Jimmy Carter. But
going rage it, Terry.
I know. But so we converted over to inches, and when a supplier they have a device they put on there to count how many threads per inch, and say like a 156 mesh, that's 156 threads per inch, and so by comparison, a 305 mesh is 305 threads per inch. So 156, it's going to let more ink through. 305 is going to let less ink through. But when they get their initial supply of mesh in, they may measure it and say, okay, this mesh is 156 threads. The next delivery might be 160 threads. And you think they're going to reprint their catalog? They're not. They're going to say, close enough. This is a 156. So that's why you see a variety of numbers. As long as it's within a few numbers, it's the same thing. So,
okay. All right.
Yeah. And next screen, and Aaron, I thought, gosh, I don't know. Is this enough information for, and we have 15 minutes left. So typical Terry. Squeegees, you're going to buy your squeegees by the inch, and your supplier's going to get them in basically 15-foot sections and cut them to size. You're going to have 14-inch squeegees, a lot of those. But hey, if I'm printing a 4-inch left chest, I don't want to use a 14-inch squeegee. So I'm going to have some 5-inch squeegees. I'm going to have some 12-inch squeegees if I'm doing youth garments. You want to have squeegees for your light colors. You want to have squeegees only used for medium colors. Squeegees only used for dark colors. I will tell you, if you have employees, let them have their own set of squeegees. The only time I've ever seen my employees nearly come to blows is he took my favorite squeegee. It's people get real personal about the squeegees they use, and so I always had all my operators had their own set of squeegees. You take care of it, you clean it, you make sure that it's in your rack at night, and you're going to have different durometers of squeegee. And durometer means the stiffness of the blade. There's soft, there's medium, there's hard. Almost everything you do is going to be done with a medium durometer squeegee. So when you talk to your supplier, get medium durometer squeegees, and that's going to basically do what you need it to do. Aaron, the next screen is inks. Most of us are going to use Plastisol ink, and Plastisol is a PVC-based ink system. The beauty for a small screen printer is it will not dry in your screen. You can take a phone call. You can go to lunch. You can leave on Friday at 6 o'clock and come back in on Monday at 8 o'clock and start printing that same design. Now, I always have people come to my classes and say, well, I want to print with water-based because I want to be eco-friendly. Water-based ink is not eco-friendly. I'll just tell you now. There are plenty of nasties in water-based ink. Now, Plastisol, you can eat it. Now, do not eat Plastisol ink. Let me repeat that. Do not eat Plastisol because I said you could.
Lock it down.
But there's nothing nasty in it. And along those lines, Aaron, textile screen printing or garment screen printing, all the chemicals and inks and supplies that we use, there's nothing bad for the environment. There's nothing bad for you and your employees. It's a very, very safe chemical system that's used in textile screen printing. The other thing that you want to do is you're probably very quickly going to buy a mixing system. And a mixing system means that I can make any PMS color, Pantone matching system color, because sooner rather than later, someone's going to come in and say, I'm with Tony's Lawn Care, and I sell John Deere lawn tractors. So I want my logo in John Deere green. Well, you're not going to pull that off the shelf. You're going to have to mix that. A mixing system is going to come with all these pure ink colors, and it's going to come with a formula. You're going to type in, I need to make 1 pint of PMS 347, and it's going to give you that formula to mix up to make that exact ink color. And if you want to print for colleges, for high schools, for corporate America, you have to have a mixing system. A mixing system, a startup set, is about $150. So you'll need it sooner rather than later. And
I'm going to throw out to our listeners a bit of a trivia question there. Whoever can post it first in the chat. PMS 347. What color is that?
Yeah, because I just pulled that out of the air.
All right, perfect. I figured that was the case. Yeah. All right, keep going, Terry.
You know me too well. Well, the next slide is talking about a scale, because you need a scale to mix ink, because you have to have very exact amounts of the different components to make those colors. Now, I'm going to tell you, you probably want to lock your scale up, because being a guy who's run a lot of production shops around the country, these scales disappear. It's almost like one of your employees has a business where they need to measure something in grams. I don't know, side business, but they always seem to disappear. You'll need the scale also, not just for your mixing system, but if you want to print jackets, things like that, you'll need to measure out the components to do that, like the additive that will make the plastic ink adhere to a water repellent jacket. So you'll need a gram scale for that. The next slide, curable reducer, and it gets its own slide, because if you call your supplier and say, hey, I want to thin my ink down, a lot of them are going to send you something called viscosity reducer. Viscosity reducer is if you put too much in the ink, it will cause that ink not to cure properly. Curable reducer, you can't mess it up. Because here's what happens in the real world. It's in your screen. It's a little too thick. You're going to pour some right there in the ink in the screen and mix it up with the squeegee. Curable reducer will help you thin that ink down without any fear of it not curing properly. The next thing is a spotting gun. You're going to need a spotting gun. Spotting gun basically is, once you print a shirt, it's got a thumbprint on it. That's if without a spotting gun, that's spoilage. You can't sell that shirt. But with a spotting gun, you can cure that shirt, and you have to cure it first with plastisol ink, and then afterwards you're going to spray that spotting gun on that spot, and it'll just fall off the shirt. So a spotting gun's probably going to run you roughly $150. I've heard the prices are dropping on them, so you might be able to pick one up for maybe $99. But really important to have. Never hold a shirt and spray the spotting gun with it in your hand, because it will go through your skin, and it will not be a pleasant situation. So you got to put that spotting gun probably over a coffee can and spray it without spraying your own hand, please.
Okay, good to know.
The next thing you're going to need is emulsion. When you talk to your supplier, they want to sell you a pure photopolymer. A pure photopolymer exposes very, very quickly. Your other option would be a dual cure. Now, I'm gonna be old school with you and say I recommend you buy a dual cure, and here's why. Pure photopolymer. If you take that screen that you've exposed, or before you expose it, and go anywhere close to a window, boom, it's exposed. You can't use it. A dual cure emulsion is going to take you longer to expose, but you can't screw it up. Let's say that your exposure time on a dual cure emulsion is 3 minutes on your particular exposure unit. If you exposed it for 2.5 minutes, it still works. If you expose it for 4 minutes, it still works. A pure photopolymer might expose in 25 seconds. At 28 seconds, it's overexposed. Aaron, as you well know, I'm a production guy, which means that I want to eliminate any possibility of stalling production. And so I use a dual cure emulsion for that simple reason that I don't want my employees to have any reason to stop production. The next thing, Aaron, is going to be a scoop coater. Scoop coater is what you're going to use to coat your screens. Let me tell you this. I coat my screens one side and then the other side. That's all. A lot of folks are going to tell you, well, you need to coat two strokes on this side and 3 on that side, or you need to coat 1 and 1 and let it dry and then 2 more on this side. And anytime someone tells you that, that's a Band-Aid. That is a Band-Aid for something they're doing wrong in their operation. 1 coat on one side, 1 coat on the other side with the sharp side of the squeegee blade.
I was waiting for that.
I was cringing right now. And if you've done the screen properly, 1 coat on each side with the sharp side of the scoop coater is exactly what you need. If that doesn't work, there's something else wrong in your process. The next thing is emulsion remover. You need this to reclaim your screens. Reclaiming your screens means that once you're done with it, it says July 4th, 2015 on it. They're not coming back for more shirts. And so you reclaim that screen and put it back in the process. Next thing is degreasing. You're going to buy a degreaser product. And degreasing your screen simply means that you're cleaning all the contaminants off. If you do not degrease your screens properly, you're going to have pinholes. Pinholes are little dots of that open up in your emulsion and will show up on your shirt. And it's not on the first shirt; it's the 5th shirt, it's the 12th shirt. And I talked to so many people who have pinhole issues, and then I discovered that they don't degrease their screens. And here's why you do that. Your emulsion is water based. If there's any oil on that screen, say for instance from your hand, that oil and water don't mix. So that's a weak area in the emulsion where it's not really holding onto that screen mesh. And with the pulling or pushing of your squeegee, it's going to break up that emulsion right there and cause little dots of color. And unfortunately, a lot of times you don't see them until the job's done. And all of a sudden you say, oh my gosh, there's 20 little dots of ink on every one of these shirts. And now it's spoilage. Spoilage is not a good thing.
No, it is not in any regard, but
exactly.
Especially T-shirts.
Press wash and ink degrade into our next screen. Press wash is basically this. If I'm changing colors on the press, if I'm cleaning my squeegees, do not use mineral spirits, things like that to clean your screens, folks. Do not use that to clean your emulsion. Use screen printing products. And the press washes, if you're going to save that screen and use it again, so you use that product to clean the screen. The other is ink degrader. Ink degrader means I'm going to scoop out all the ink. I'm going to go to the sink. I'm going to spray the ink degrader on there, and I'm going to use a brush to clean it off, and then I would use a hose and water to rinse that ink off the screen. So if I'm going to reclaim the screen, I use an ink degrader. If I'm going to save the screen, I use a press wash. Of course, you're going to use brushes. The next slide there. You want non-abrasive brushes. You want a lot of these. You're going to have one for only degreasing, one for only ink degrading, and one for only reclaiming the screens. And let's see, you're going to need tape, Aaron, the next slide. A variety of different types of tape. What I'll warn you is this: do not use masking tape, because it's a paper product and it'll start breaking up into your ink. You can use box sealing tape, and I know some folks are cringing out there. It's not the best, but don't use cheap box sealing tape. And the cheapest tape at Walmart, what's going to happen is when you peel the tape off, it's going to leave the adhesive on your screen and on your frame. And after you've done that several times, you use that screen over and over, it's going to have a buildup of adhesive that's going to be a problem for you. There are professional screen tapes. If you'll see, like the one that in the picture there for our podcast listeners, it's a tape that's white on one side. That's the most adhesive part, and it has a checkerboard on the other part, and that's what goes on your frame. And the reason for that is it's low tack where it's checkerboard, so that you don't get a buildup of adhesive on your screen printing frame. Another item, and Aaron, I don't know where you want to cut me off here. Where?
No, you're good. I don't mind going a little bit long. I think this is some great information, but yeah, let's get through all the must-haves here, and then maybe we'll take a quick break.
Okay, sure thing. Temperature strips. What you would need to buy is paper thermometers, and your supplier's going to carry these. It's a little strip, and they're adhesive, and they peel off. I think there's a dozen. Well, if I look at the label here, 16 in the package. You peel those off, and what you're going to do with that temperature strip is this. You're going to put it inside your shirt underneath the print. And you don't do this every time. You're just testing your dryer. What it's going to do is it's going to turn black up to the temperature it got to. And you want to make sure it gets up to 320 degrees. So temperature strip number 5, that's one you need to buy, because there are all these different ones available for different industries. Aaron, there's I think it's like number 8 that you use for sublimation, I believe. But number 5 is what we use as screen printers. And you're going to put that inside the shirt. And if it turned black up to 320 degrees, then that print is cured. So you want to test periodically to make sure that you're getting a good cure by using these thermal or these paper thermometers. They're about $15 or $16 for a pack of 16. So pretty inexpensive, but you need them in your shop. Adhesives. Most people use a spray adhesive. You need to use an adhesive to hold the shirt in place for printing, because what happens with ink is when you pull the squeegee across, the ink on the shirt tries to hold onto the screen. And so you need a light adhesive to make sure that shirt doesn't pick up. There are liquid adhesives that you could pour on, spread them around with a little squeegee. You'll never turn in a hotel key ever again, by the way. Those are really, really good for spreading adhesive or for scraping ink out of a screen. And but most people in manual screen printing shops will use a spray adhesive. There's mist spray, there's web spray. There are pros and cons of each. It's really a matter of personal preference, to be honest, though.
Hey, Terry, real quick question on that. Val had asked, in the shirt or on top?
Well, that's an excellent question, Val. If you put it on top, that's going to tell you what the temperature is on the surface of that shirt. When we are curing shirts, we need to have the entire ink film thickness cured. And a lot of people, they'll use like a heat gun and point it at the shirt. Well, yes, that tells me the surface, but it doesn't tell me if the ink that's actually inside the shirt or that's into the fabric is cured, because every shop's going to be different. If you're in a place that's pretty humid, the dryer's got to burn off that humidity, the moisture in that shirt, before the ink's completely cured. So it could be cured on the surface, but not cured all the way through. So put it inside the shirt underneath the image. And that's going to give you the true test of whether or not the shirt's cured. If any of your shirts crack, the print cracks, it's from under curing, and you're like, gosh, I know I did this right. I know I had the dryer set right. Well, maybe that shirt had moisture in it or something like that, and it caused that ink film not to cure all the way through. So your supplier probably, Val, told you just stick it on top. I'm telling you that the better test is to put it inside.
Nice. Yeah, I actually have a closet full of shirts, from different events and stuff that I've gotten, definitely the polyester ones that the ink's all cracked. And from listening to you, I know exactly why that is.
Exactly. It's funny, Aaron, because people call me up. Okay, Terry, now I know I cured it right, so I know what they're about to say to me. But the ink cracks. What's wrong with the ink? Let me tell you this, America and around the world. It's never the ink. It's always you.
I think we've covered that. Yeah,
we have, but it's like back and forth. It cracked. It's undercured. No, but it cracked. It's undercured. But no, that's not it. But it cracked. It's undercured. It's always undercure if it's cracked.
Nice. Very nice. All right, Terry. Well, is there another slide? We are down to my wish list that maybe we'll save for another day. Yeah, let me get a couple things pulled up so we can do this correctly, and we will move that there. Yeah, let's take a little break here, Terry, and hear a word from Equipment Zone, and then let's come back and talk about your wish list too. I think we got a pretty good must-have list, but I'd like to know what you want, in your stocking for Christmas, so to speak. All right, so let's make this happen. Here was a word from Equipment Zone.
Our show today is sponsored by Equipment Zone. Go to equipmentzone.com for the Epson F2000 direct-to-garment printer. Equipment Zone is the only Epson reseller who sends a technician to every customer location for training. This is an absolutely free visit to your location. Equipment Zone is also the manufacturer of the #1 pre-treat machine in the industry, the Speed Treater TX. With no compressor and no special tanks, the Speed Treater TX is the easiest and most consistent pre-treat machine available worldwide. Go to equipmentzone.com for the Epson F2000, the Speed Treater TX, and for all your DTG inks and supplies. That's equipmentzone.com. That's equipmentzone.com. All right. Well, thanks to Equipment Zone. I guess I need to record a new commercial for our friends at Equipment Zone, our longtime sponsor, because they now also do offer the Epson F2100, the newest offering from Epson, and that machine's going to be available to ship in the middle of March. And also, obviously, Aaron, the sublimation printers as well, large format sublimation printers from Epson as well, 6200, 7200, and the 93 was something.
I won't call you about those. I'll talk to somebody else there.
Somebody knows what the number is.
Yeah. All right. Well, good stuff, Terry. All right, Terry. Well, let's. I'm going to try to get us back to the slides here because we're going to go into bonus time. Good thing you took the day off.
I know my day off to recover and Aaron, I'm on a 5-hour flight last night and I sat down. As soon as we're going down the runway, the guy behind me sneezed. I'm like, gosh darn it. 5 hours. Can I hold my breath that long?
All right, Terry. Well, so we've talked about all the must-haves. I didn't ask you. Can you just give us a ballpark of price for those must-have items?
Yeah, Aaron, this is and I always tell people the benefit of screen printing is you can actually start a real production shop, and by production shop I mean actually do this for a living for $15,000 to $20,000, and that is really cheap to start a business. The curse of screen printing is your neighbor can start a real production shop for $15,000 to $20,000.
Yeah. Okay. But so that's a good ballpark. But let's say, maybe I've got a little bit more money in my budget than that. Talk to us about some of the things that we might also want to have.
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of those is retentionable frames, and there are a few different brands out there, but most everybody in the industry uses Newman roller frames, and the point of a retentionable frame is this: screen tension. As long as you get the screens right in screen printing, you're 90% there. The printing part's the easy part. You got to get the screens right, the right mesh, the right tension. And as you're using your static aluminum, and that's what we call a frame where the mesh is glued onto it. Your static aluminum frame, every time you use it, loses a little bit of tension. A retentionable frame is I print a job. I reclaim that screen. I put my tension meter on it, which is the next slide, Aaron. Put my tension meter on it, and if it's lost some tension, I can tighten it back up to that tension. And after maybe 5 jobs or so, it will retain that tension. It's called work hardening, and so I can use a retentionable frame for years until I tear it or cause some damage to it. It's substantially more. You're probably talking 3 times more than a static aluminum frame. I'm not encouraging people to go out and say, hey, I just want all retentionable frames. But maybe you're going to have maybe 6 in your shop where you're going to use them for your fine lines, halftone dots. Maybe you're doing some simulated process printing. And it's a really good frame to have. And if you do that, you are going to need a tension meter, and the next slide there in this category, tension meter is going to tell us what the tension of that frame is, and we're going to want to have ideal scenario is going to be 25 to 35 newtons, and that's the measurement of tension. And having a tension meter, if you just have static aluminum frames, you don't need a tension meter, but it's really a nice thing to have. So if your mother-in-law doesn't know what to get you for Christmas, a tension meter would be a really cool thing to have, because, it is nice to be able to put that meter on your frames and say, gosh, this tension meter is getting to the point, or I'm sorry, this mesh is getting to the point where I need to take it out of service. And a lot of your static aluminum frames, by the way, talk to your supplier. A lot of your suppliers will recycle those for you. In other words, they'll take in the old frame and they'll sell you a discounted new frame. So that's always something good to do as well. Another thing, Aaron, the next slide is a jacket hold down device, because no amount of spray tack that you put on a screen is going to hold a line jacket in place. So you need a device that we're picturing here. And for podcast listeners, you load the jacket on, and this platen comes with a clamp that's on a hinge, and you bring that down and you tighten it down. And here's a little secret to really good jacket printing. Once you put that jacket on that hold down device and clamp it down, put it over under your flash unit for a couple of seconds, and it's going to cause that nylon to shrink just a little bit and make that printable area tight as a drum for printing. So that's a little secret of jacket printing that I learned the hard way.
Yep.
Everything that I talk about in my classes and really on this show is based on many years of mistakes and standing in the middle of my production floor going, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. Aaron, the last thing that I have on the slide I have on my wish list is a vacuum platen. And a vacuum platen is it's a plexiglass platen that has tiny little holes in it and has a hose attached to the bottom and in a vacuum box on the floor. And what you use this for is for printing transfers. You're going to put the transfer paper on the platen, hit the foot pedal, and it's going to vacuum it in place. And the reason you do that is if you use regular spray adhesive to hold a transfer in place, and it will certainly work, but if you want to stack those transfers, if there's any residue of spray adhesive on the back of that paper, it's going to stick to the ink on the paper or on the transfer beneath it. And when you pick that up, it's going to peel that ink right off the transfer paper. So if you want to do transfers, you really need a vacuum platen. There's some universal ones that fit on most presses. So talk to your supplier about that. You're probably looking at about $500 to buy a vacuum platen, but you can also use it to print bumper stickers, things like that. So it's kind of a cool device, and probably sooner rather than later, you're going to want to print some transfers. So that's the device you need to do that with. So. Okay. That's the everything you need, Aaron, to start a production screen printing business. And here's my disclaimer: I teach a lot of classes, but if you're going to start a business, go to a class, because it's going to save you a lot of heartache by doing that, to learn to do this properly.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so Tara, we talked a little bit throughout this, about suppliers and some of the, people that are focused in different areas and stuff like that. But I guess I want to ask you, can you talk to us about picking a good supplier? What things are important, and what are the secrets? Well,
the thing is, I always say pick a supplier close to home, first of all. Okay. It's really awesome when you're first starting out if they do have some experience with screen printing, but it's not required, because once you start printing for a while, once you go to a class, you're probably going to be way more knowledgeable about the products that you need than the supplier. Now, they are hugely helpful, and take advantage of your suppliers. And by that, I mean, hey, listen, if you want me to change emulsions, why don't you come out and do a demo for all my staff? They'll do it in a second, because they're there and they're willing to help you. And I don't mean to disparage suppliers and by jokingly having the used car salesman at the beginning of the the slide presentation, because there are a lot of really, really great suppliers out there, and I've learned tons of things from my individual suppliers over the years. So, but they're there and they're more than willing to help you. So take advantage of that.
Excellent. Okay, Terry, we've got one quick question here. And Jeanette asks, how much pushback from the platen to the screen should there be when printing shirts?
Pushback.
I'm guessing maybe off contact.
Okay, very good. You're probably correct. Yes, when you are printing with plastisol ink, you want to be off contact, which means the screen is away from the garment. The only place that the screen touches the shirt is along the sharp edge of the squeegee blade. And it should pick up right behind it, never stick to. If it sticks to the shirt, your screen is too soft. If you have a good tight screen, really your off contact could be the thickness of a quarter laying down on top of the shirt. And here's another quick tip for you. If a lot of folks are always adjusting their platens, or I'm sorry, their screens, raising and lowering the off contact, going from t-shirts to sweatshirts, for instance. I don't like to change that. What I do is if I'm going from t-shirts to sweatshirts, I'll have paint stirrers there. And I'll put a paint stirrer and then put the screen on top of it and clamp it down. And that'll raise up that shirt or that screen enough to allow for, a nice thick sweatshirt as well. So rather than always adjusting your press, use that paint stirrer for printing thicker items.
Cool. Okay. Well, good. Jeanette, hopefully that answered your question, and you can always catch us over at tworegularguys.com, and we get feedback there, and we're always happy to answer the questions or point you in the right direction if we can. So,
absolutely.
Thanks for the feedback, and Val, also thanks for your feedback. She said excellent content. I do agree. Bravo, Terry. Nice job today. Any closing thoughts before we kind of move on and close out here?
Gosh, I think we've covered it all. If anybody has questions, especially if you're like buying out a shop or something and you're curious about what they have and what it's worth. And I just talked to somebody recently and basically the company was asking for, retail price for all the old equipment they had. So I discouraged that, but hey, there's a lot of good buys out there too, but just let us know. And we're happy to advise you on that type of purchase. And Aaron and I have zero ties with any suppliers. So we are more than happy to give you the lowdown.
Absolutely. Yeah. We can name names and no, it's kind of what we do this for, and it's things that we love doing for sure, Terry. So
exactly.
All right, Terry. Well, let's kind of wrap this up. I think we've gone into overtime here, so good stuff. I will just quickly share my events here. I've got we're talking about doing this at Kansas City. Well, I'm going to be doing digital marketing, growing your business with social media and email marketing on Friday, February 23rd at 12:30 there at DAX Kansas City. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at that. And then you and I get to not only hang out and enjoy the party on Friday night, but right before that, we'll be doing Finding Niche Markets because you're a digital decorator. We've been working on that program and really trying to fine tune that for you. So we're excited to give you some opportunities to go out and make some money with your digital decorating device. And Terry, what about you? I know we've obviously talked that you've got this seminar coming up, the equipment and supplies. So you're going to go into more detail.
Exactly. Well,
saying, "Hey, Terry."
Well, tomorrow I'm going to be doing my complete screen printing business course. If our friends at O'Hare get the runways cleared this afternoon, and that class is actually sold out at Atlas Screen Supply. March 3rd and 4th, I'm going to be doing another seminar for Atlas Screen Supply, but that's going to be at their new location in Nashville. And then in April, I'll be doing the Workhorse Products seminar again in Phoenix. My DAX seminar, Aaron, is going to be exactly what we just said, equipment and supplies. And if you're coming to that seminar, just bring all your questions and we'll cover it all for you. And of course, all my upcoming events are at terrycombs.com under tour dates.
Yeah. Friday at DAX is going to be the Two Regular Guys Day. I feel bad for the other speakers, but
I know. They can have the overflow.
Yeah. Right. So speaking of other speakers there, we're pretty excited to have Matt from the Rhinestone World joining us next week. And he's also going to kind of preview his DAX seminar, but kind of in line of our costing series that we did last year with you and I, and then Eric and Andrea Bomarito, and some great information. And we're going to talk about rhinestones and vinyl and how to price and make money in that world. So that's going to be a great conversation. Looking forward to talking to Matt and having all of his peeps join us.
Absolutely. Matt's a great teacher and a great guy. And we always love having him on the show. And Matt's one of those guys, Aaron, we can ask a couple of questions, just sit back and he'll just go.
Yeah, I might even hide myself. And
well, Aaron, It's we're in overtime anyway, so it's your week to do its 5 things.
All right. Well, as I had mentioned, I felt the need to also have a list of things that you would need, not so complete as Terry, but so this is 5 things you need for a successful toner transfer business. And number 1 is white toner LED printer. And the LED is important because heat transfers are just that. They transfer with heat. And so an LED is less heat than laser. So important to find that. Next thing, you need a high quality heat press. I think we've covered that pretty much in detail on this program, beating that horse to death. Number 3, 2-step dark shirt weedless transfer paper. There's several great ones out on the market. So find the one that you like that fits your budget. Number 4, you're going to need high density t-shirts. My personal favorite are Fruit of the Loom HD, but there are tons of great shirts nowadays that are designed for digital decorating, for toners, and keeps the transfers up on top and nice and clean. And number 5 is you're going to need silicone treated parchment paper so you can protect your heat press and keep pressing very quickly. So there's my 5 things for the week. And again, not quite the list that Terry had for us, but hey, hopefully
That's awesome.
get you thinking. Obviously, there's a lot of things on my list that are missing too. So love to hear everybody else's feedback once I get that posted over on Facebook. The infographic, what your needs are, what you think is needed in that world too.
And we'd certainly love to have any of our listeners contribute their 5 things, and
Absolutely.
and exactly the way Aaron has them listed here, just kind of talking points and things to stimulate conversation. So we'd love to have you guys participate.
Absolutely. All right, Terry. Well, great job today, and let's do it again next week. What do you say?
Let's do it next week, and I'm going to repack my suitcase and head to the airport here in a little bit. See everybody next week.
Safe travels.
Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.